Welcome back. It's your boy Seth Garu Baxter with Maker's Bar, where we're creating 1 million leaders today for tomorrow. Today, I'm excited to have another special guest today who is referred to me by another guest, and I have seen his profile and some of the work that he's doing, and we at Maker's Bar welcome him today. He is the CEO and founder of Pep Talks with Pepz. He's a life and business coach working in a particular line of work for himself and for others. We are pleased to welcome Pepz. Pepz, is okay to call you Pepz?
Yes, please. That is the name.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us and giving us your time with Maker's Bar today.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited for this conversation. I'm excited to just get into it. I'm really, really thankful for this.
Absolutely. Well, if you, ladies and gentlemen of the audience, are enjoying the content and the guests that we're bringing to you, please do us a favor, press like, subscribe, and share the content that you're hearing from us at Maker's Bar. Let others know some of the great inventors and innovators and CEOs, life coaches, etc., that you see on your Maker's Bar channel. We're welcome to have you join us. And here we go. Pepz, tell us about your origin story. Where do you hail from?
Oh, man. Well, I'm currently in LA, Los Angeles, California, but I was born in the Dominican Republic, and we immigrated to this country when I was about five and a half. And we grew up on the East Coast, so we moved originally to New York, and then to Rhode Island, and then I moved back to New York. So my origin story really began as an immigrant child trying to figure out this country, and I say that because I didn't learn English till I was about 11 years old, which it's kind of interesting because for most of my life, I didn't really realize the impact that would have on me, pursuing entertainment, pursuing public speaking, pursuing coaching, like all the things in English coming from an immigrant child who didn't speak Spanish. But I highlight that because one of the things that I focus on as a coach and as an artist is really just creating whatever I want to create that feels good to me, that could also impact somebody else. And one of the things that I really believe in is that we can only really help people or lead people to a change, specifically within coaching, if you've gone through that change. So, things like learning English, in 5th grade because I couldn't communicate, and like overcoming the fear and the insecurities and the judgment, while also having these big dreams of being an entertainer, wanting to be an actor, wanting to be a dancer. So my origin story kind of began with this idea of what do I need to figure out for myself in order to get what I want, in a really simple way. So to nail it down a little bit more concretely, I began my professional career working in corporate and human resources. I worked all through college. I went to NYU. I quickly found out that for me, corporate is not where I wanted to live for the rest of my life. I saw how interesting it was that we would work 50, 60 hours, when we're supposed to work 40 hours for a paycheck, and how many people, including myself, would be unfulfilled, would be stressed. We would have all these dreams and goals and aspirations, and we would just be tied down to this box. We would be tied down to this box of a place where we're sitting in front of a computer, which is basically a box, to push somebody else's dreams forward. And that just didn't work out for me. So since very little, I knew that I wanted to be a performer, and I knew that I wanted to have freedom, and I knew I wanted to have this big family and live how I wanted. But getting to the place now where I have my own business and I'm still working as an artist, was a journey where I had to completely learn, how money works, how to believe in myself, and learning the skills to make each individual thing happen.
Now, I'm curious, what part of New York? I hail from New York myself, and then I want to come back to some of the acting things. So what part of New York?
So most of my family was between the Bronx and Terrytown / Sleepy Hollow. My grandfather, yeah,
dig it.
yeah. My grandfather on my mom's side, though, he lived in Harlem. So my dad's family was mostly like in the Bronx / Sleepy Hollow, and then my grandfather on my mom's side, he lived in Harlem. And me personally, I lived between the Bronx and Washington Heights. So when we moved out of New York to Rhode Island, and then I moved back to New York, I moved back to the Bronx / the Heights, which is where my people are at, because I'm Dominican. So wherever I'm usually there too.
Oh yeah, that's a big Dominican population there,
Yeah.
coming from there. Myself being New York and my parents meeting in Harlem, we the Dominicans and Puerto Ricans and always were up in those corners, man.
Yeah.
And so were your parents also in the arts?
No, I'm actually the only person in my family who's an artist. My grandfather would sing on my mom's side a little bit, but not professionally. So I'm the first in my family who's an artist, which has been interesting for all of us to navigate collectively.
I'm sure. Is that partially what led you into acting?
My mom always said since the age of 4, I always just said I wanted to be an actor. Like, she has no idea like where it came from. She just said since the age of 4, I always said I wanted to be an actor. And she would also say with the music, I make music too, is I would, in DR, in the Dominican Republic, I would somehow at the age of 4, open up the windows and turn on the speakers as loudly as possible and just blast music. And then I would just sit in her rocking chair and just pass out as the music is blasting for the entire neighborhood to hear. I don't know specifically where it came from, but that's what my mom has said that I always did. Yeah.
And so is this what led you to some of the life coaching? What was your road looking like getting into life coaching and business coaching? Was it the acting that you wanted to supplement your acting, or you found, as I noticed, sometimes we find a vocation en route, and that means, so I'm enjoying acting, but I'm also seeing that I have skills to help other people coach. What was your road look like?
I would say it's a mixture of both, but mostly the desire to leave. So what ended up happening is in 2014, I was invited, and I'm still in New York at this point. I was invited by a friend who's now has gone on to choreograph for Beyonce, and I'm blinking on the names like The Color Purple, all these amazing jobs. Like, she's gone into choreograph, but at the time she was, beginning to launch her dance career. And that's when I was like really heavy into dance. And she invited me to a business meeting. And it was one of those like network marketing presentations where, they have a little projector or TV screen, and, you have a 30-40 minute presentation. Then you have like 5 people at the end saying, I can make money doing this. You can make money doing this. Those get rich quick schemes that people really talk negatively against. But I ended up really falling in love with network marketing. For one, I would say everybody should try network marketing at least for a year, because nobody, at least in my experience, makes money fast, and most people that I would meet never said it would be fast. So I was actually really grateful that they didn't give me like the BS spiel of, you're going to be rich by tomorrow or in 3 months if you do this. So I was really grateful that they gave me that, because network marketing is basically sales. And one of the things within sales for you to sell effectively is, 1, knowing how to sell, 2, actually having the belief that you can get paid for yourself. So most people have jobs. So we're used to getting paid via an employer, which kind of takes away the responsibility from making your own economy. But when you're selling something on your own, you have to produce the results. Otherwise, you're not getting paid, right? But to produce any results, you have to know what you're doing. You have to believe in what you're doing. And you actually have to go after it. So I say that to say, because when I first got into this company, I just became obsessive. I was like, we're going to make money. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And then, I started making money, and then they would invite me to these trainings. And at these trainings, they would bring in people like Eric Thomas and other like big named motivational speakers. And every single training for network marketing rarely ever talked about network marketing. It was, what is your level of integrity? What is your level of confidence? What is your level of commitment? What is your level of study? Like, how much are you studying to actually do well in the thing that you said that you want to do well in? And in hearing these people speak, I was like, oh, I really love this world of personal development. And I then became obsessive with studying all these people, from Eric Thomas, Danny Johnson, Lisa Nichols, Bob Proctor. And I think that I was like soaking it in, like just immersing myself fully into whatever they were saying. I would just start like bringing it out in my life, specifically in my job of HR, because I was still working in human resources. So I would get in trouble at HR because people would come to me for coaching or for like consulting. And some people would say, that's technically not your job. If they have issues, they should go to this person, so on and so forth. So I found myself naturally coaching. And then when I would kind of see, I call it the game of corporate, how the game was, so I say that because there's a few different things in corporate that people don't always realize. One, I remember getting laid off from my recruitment job at the end of 2017. I think it was 2017 or 2016. I don't know. Because I restaffed their entire population, 47% by myself. And I redid their onboarding system. I redid their orientation. I redid their employee experience. And they were kind of like, we actually don't even need you anymore. Because they were stable. They hired me because they had such a high attrition rate and they were missing about half their population. And once that was taken out of the picture, then I was taken out of the picture. So one of the things that I've seen in my experience in corporate is like kind of just do enough to like move the needle forward, but not necessarily always to get to the finish line. Do you know what I mean?
Makes sense. It does. It makes sense. And I was in recruitment, so I definitely get it.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where like the game with corporate for me was almost making me feel out of integrity. But then I, like most people, I stayed in corporate for longer than I needed to or wanted to. And then literally 2 days before Thanksgiving in 2019, I was laid off from my 6-figure job. And I kind of said, I am done with corporate. And then I committed to entertainment. I, booked an amazing job for Diplo and Post Malone. I landed this magazine cover. And then the pandemic happened. And then entertainment was effectively kind of shut down, but I was still able to work. And I remember in 2020, I attended this seminar with PSI Seminars. They're the oldest personal development institute in the country. And they challenged us to offer a service of yours or a gift of yours for free for 30 days. And at the time, I had not been doing as much coaching as I wanted to. So I was like, I think I'll just try this out again. And I created a quick little curriculum for 4 weeks. I gave it to 4 people for free. And they all got really great results. This girl overcame like depression in 4 weeks, which wasn't even like a thing that I knew that I could help her with. This other guy was in this, really like unfulfilling job, paying him very little. And thankfully, those people are still my clients, 4 or 5 years later. And that's kind of like what restarted the coaching, because I had been doing it on and off during HR, but not full time, like not as much as I am now. And that led me into coaching. And when I had COVID in 2021, I got really sick, like really, really sick with COVID, to the point where I lost 20 pounds in 10 days. I had a fever of 102 for 10, 11 days. And I remember praying to God. I was in my shower, I was praying to God. I was like, God, I was like, if you can get me through this, I was like, I will launch Pep Talk with Peps. I was like, I will launch Pep Talk with Peps. Like, no excuses. I will do whatever it takes. And as soon as I got better, I remember I just went crazy for like 2 weeks. I like spent like 18, 20 hours just creating my website, finishing my course, my first course. And I launched in like 2.5 weeks. I basically did 6.5 weeks worth of work in 2 weeks. I did so many hours per day. And I've made money since day one. And I've coached now in the past like 3-4 years, almost 1,400 people. While still being an entertainer. So that's kind of the story. Thank you.
That is absolutely incredible. I'm curious, if you don't mind, what insight can you give us to some of your methodology that has made it successful, without giving away trade secrets for sure?
Oh no, and I don't mind. I think there's this coach that I worked with last year. His name is Ray J. Green, and he's very systems heavy. He's very, very systems heavy. But he always says like you should feel uncomfortable by how much you're giving away for free. So like I don't. So you can ask me as many details as you want. But some things that helped me like make the business successful, which is how I teach people to build businesses now, is one, it's like really figuring out what you want to offer. Like, what is it that you really want to offer? Even above the details of, is it going to help somebody make more money? Is it going to help somebody get a new job? Like even beyond those details. Because when I first launched, I was like, I just want to help people like believe in themselves and accomplish their goals. And I had all these years of experience from HR, from studying entertainment, from personal development, all these years of experience and all these different things that I was like, well, what I have to offer is just like my entire life background, from learning English at the age of 10, almost 11, because I had to, and learning it well. And then beginning a dance career when I was 20 and being able to work for like Post Malone and Diplo and Megan Thee Stallion, like things that typically won't happen unless you're beginning at the age of like 3, specifically within dance. So part of what I do with business coaching and myself, it's like, well, what are we offering, And typically that what we have to offer, we usually should embody, So for me, I've always been able to say like, somehow, some way, I've accomplished the majority of my goals, if not all of them, but I've been able to accomplish these incredible goals that most people never do. So really knowing what it is that you have to offer, I'm like, somehow if I can do it, I can help somebody else do it. So the first thing is like really figuring out what I wanted to offer. So my first course, which is still my flagship course, it's called Get to Your Next Level, Path to Prosperity. It's 7-8 different modules where we cover what goal setting actually is, not just in terms of like SMART goals or, whatever the framework, but tying your goals to who you are as a person. So there's 3 types of goals. There's process-based goals, there's identity-based goals, and then there's outcome-based goals. And I always tie those goals together. Then I go into building up your belief system, and like your belief system about yourself, not necessarily about what you think is possible. So for example, we all know that people are millionaires. We all know that there's a lot of millionaires in the world. And a lot of people have that same goal, that they want to be a millionaire. The issue is not if they believe if it's possible. The issue is usually like if they believe it's possible for them. And for most people, the answer is, I don't know, or it's no. And I don't know is not a yes, right? So even within the way I built up this course, it was like, oh, I'm really teaching people how to believe in themselves. So the first thing for me was like, I just got to figure out what I want to help them with, And for me, I was like, it has to be belief. Everything has to be getting them to a place in believing themselves. So firstly, it's like figuring out what I wanted to offer. Secondly, I also knew just based on like recruitment, that it should be easy for me to be hired. So, like your resume should look a certain way. You should have your email that you check your resume. You should have your phone
Oh
number,
yeah.
like being able to receive voicemail. So like making it easy for you to be hired. So then creating like the tangible things like the landing pages, the websites, making sure that you can process payments or receive payments. And the third thing, which now I'm kind of like shifting a little bit, is I've always been pretty aggressive. I'm pretty much have been like team no sleep. Let's get it done one way
Let's
or
get
another.
it. Yep.
Let's get it done.
Entrepreneurial.
Yeah. So I've been shifting it a little bit now because I've also seen that force doesn't always work, and sometimes it can just be exhausting, right? Like doing everything by force. But at the beginning, I was like, well, if we just gotta DM people, if we gotta just message people, if we gotta send out email blasts, if we gotta, write articles and get exposure. So just figuring out like how can I just get more visibility? So like the top 3 things would be like, well, what am I offering? How am I offering it? Can I be easily hireable? And then just doing the work, I talk about doing the work in regards to like the law of attraction, because a lot of times law of attraction, not to get like super out there, people just focus.
It's okay. It's interesting.
Well, the thing is with the law of attraction, it literally tells you how it works. It's attract and action. So like attract and action are both 50% of the word attraction. The attract is the mental, like what do I want? What do I want to offer? How much money do I want to make? What tends to happen is a lot of people just focus on like, meditate till the sun goes down, write all these things out 55 times. And like, I do meditate and I do use techniques, but you still have to do the work, It's like you can meditate all day long on looking a certain way physically, but if you don't do anything about your body tangibly, the meditation isn't going to do anything. So
it still takes the action. It still takes the action.
Yeah. Like even biblically, I forget the actual scripture, but it says like faith without works is dead.
That's right.
Yeah, and even now it's like we don't really need to have faith, because if we use the definition of faith for things as the evidence for things unseen, most of our dreams have been done. Like we've seen people go from rags to riches. We've seen people create dream careers. We've seen people. I know for me, he's not on the top of my list, but for Elon Musk, he thinks it's as easy to go to Mars as it is for us to get a glass of water. Like,
it's a great example. It's an absolute great example.
You know what I mean? And he's doing the work. So it's like we see all those things, but it's also like we have to have the belief and we got to do the work. Yeah.
And now your clients, if you don't mind, and this is another phase of that question, your clients, how do they find you? What questions are they asking themselves? This is why I need to get with Pepz.
That is so funny because I get this question all the time and I never have a great answer. Because up until this year, and I've done a lot of coaching for the past like 3-4 years, I did very little intentional marketing, like very little intentional marketing. So I've been very fortunate to just get a lot of referrals from people. And now people have been finding me mostly from like the marketing that the new marketing strategy that I've acquired. And interestingly enough, coaching has allowed me to book more entertainment jobs, and entertainment jobs have allowed me to get more clients. So I say this because I think we can spend, when I say we, a lot of entrepreneurs can spend a lot of time on like the marketing and, the content and all the things that are important, without really understanding that the biggest way to attract anything is by being an attractive person, and not like physically, but I feel like you're attractive when you're doing the work. Like you're attractive when you're getting yourself results. You're
Because
attractive. Your
because
passion.
your passion radiates it.
Yeah. And also like there's something to be said about like being committed to something, like being committed and being convicted. It's, I don't know, I'm thinking of like Sarah Jakes Roberts. She has a sermon where she's like, you know, thank God for people who are at the gym who are more convicted than I am, because it makes me want to be more convicted to the workout, you know? So I say that because I've been really fortunate to kind of just embody this work. Everything that I've created for my business has come from like what I created for myself, you know, in combination with like working with different coaches and like, you know, getting books and studying. But every course that I've created, I created it because I didn't have that for myself. You know, I wish I had my course, Path to Prosperity, years ago, because I was like, I don't want people to hop around, you know, from one coach to another course to a different course. You know, I created this course based on what I needed to learn, the things that I figured out, the studies that I went through, and then I delivered the information in the way that I needed to process it and make sense of it. I had a meeting with a potential coach that I wanted to hire last week, and it was a good meeting. And I came in with all the things that I, you know, wanted to cover, what I've discovered for myself. And he didn't tell me anything that I didn't already know by the end of the call, which is fine. But then I was like, you know, I just am taking this as feedback that is not the right coach for me. So one of the things that I feel like happens with business is people want to feel that you can take them somewhere else than where they're at, or help them out in some way, you know.
I think it's very true.
So even with looking for a job, you know, employers want to feel that you're going to give them a benefit. And what I would tell my career coaching clients, and this is the way that I would hire people, is, you know, is this person going to make us more money? Are they going to make our lives easier? You know, are they saving our time? Are they saving us time? Are they saving us resources? And when I was building up my first business course, I was like, that's probably how I've hired coaches for me. Like, are they saving me money? Are they making me more money? Are they saving me time? Because that's subconsciously, I feel like, what we want when we spend money on something is like, somehow it's going to make us more money. It's going to save us time, or it's going to make us feel better. It's going to make our lives easier, whether it is a pair of sneakers, you know, or you're going to the movie, like for whatever it is, like those things might make your life easier for a moment, you know? So for me, to answer your question, it's like, I think I've just attracted a lot of clients just by doing this work. And also now that I'm really intentional with the marketing now, is communicating those things. So I would say right now I'm in the journey of building up my company to be, you know, 7 figures. Like taking a big leap from where I'm at right now to like just getting 7 figures. And that's going to be more systems, but still the core is like, what are you offering to people? You know, like, what are you offering to people? And intuitively, I also feel that we usually have more resources within us and around us that we don't always leverage. So leveraging even just your network, you know, even just having conversations, even with Ali, I was telling her during our interview that I'm doing this free event next week that she should attend. And she was like, you know, I'm going to invite people. So if people don't even have a marketing strategy, but you believe in your offer, just talk to more people. Yeah.
It sounds like you definitely love this side of things, but it also sounds you still have a strong passion for the acting as well. Mm-hmm. So if you had to make a choice, what would your choice be to follow completely?
Oh God. It's interesting because I've been pivoting my business because I do want to perform more. But I've been pivoting my business in a way where it will run without me being as physically there, you know, without compromising the integrity. So right now I'm just really feeling excited to perform more. You know, I don't know what led to the shift. Maybe because I've been so gung-ho with coaching for the past like 3 or 4 years. But I think, I don't know, I just think of like the performers that I love, even the ones that I don't love. And I think it's wonderful to see, one person or a group of people be able to massively impact other people, on a very either human, basic level, whatever you want to call it. I just think that's such a gift. I think it's such a gift that, there's people like Taylor Swift who attracts one kind of audience and she makes them feel incredible. I think it's such a gift to have, somebody like Jennifer Lopez who attracts an entirely different type of audience and she makes them feel incredible. As an actor, as an entertainer, I gravitate to roles where, they're like the anti-hero or the villain, or they're going through something, because I think in our lives, there is no real hero. Like there's no real hero, nor is there really a villain, meaning that one of the things that I've had to navigate over the past like year or so is everybody's on their own journey, and there's a story that people aren't saying. There's a story that people are struggling with. When I recovered from COVID after those 2 weeks, I developed long haul COVID for like 2-3 years where I couldn't perform because I had basically psoriasis all over my body for like 2-3 years. And I just remember like feeling so frustrated and like building this business, not being able to perform or feeling uncomfortable with being seen. And that journey made me really develop a lot of compassion for myself. Like, how can I feel good when I physically don't look how I want to look? How can I take care of myself in a way where I'm not rushing to get better? Because before I was like, I'm going to heal by tomorrow. I'm going to heal by next week. I would take the medication. I would, go to the treatments, and none of that shit worked for whatever the reason. So I say that because as an artist, I really gravitate to the roles where there's more than what we're seeing. Like there's more to these people, in music. When I write songs, it's like, okay, what is this song saying to myself or to somebody that could hear it? I wrote this song where it's literally a conversation that I had with God about when my healing was not happening. And I was like, you said that you are a God of healing. And then I was like, but what about me? Like, did you forget about me? Are you ignoring it? Like what about me? So I say that because as an artist, I think artists, they get a lot of flack for, being wealthy or whatever, they get a lot of flack for that. But I'm like, I kind of feel like they should be. Like, you're a vessel for so many people that you're helping them feel seen or feel understood, or even just relating to somebody, regardless of how wealthy they are, or if they came from a wealthy family or if they came from a broke family. I think artists are really great vessels for people to feel better and grow.
And it sounds like you have a long-term goals in coaching people. So in those long-term goals, 5 years from now, Pep Talks with Pepz is where? Where do you see that?
I was going to say it sounds crazy, but I'm just going to say it's going to be normal. I'm normalizing it. I want it to be on the level of Tony Robbins or Mel Robbins. I want it to be massive. I really want it to be massive. I want to make sure that as my company and I continue to grow, that it's not just massive in terms of like numbers, but massive in terms of impact. I have been blessed to have a lot of clients who are married and their spouses are like, thank you for giving me a better partner. Thank you for giving me a better parent to my child or whatever. Um, and that to me is how the transformation I feel like will happen in the world. So I really wanted to go global without compromising the impact.
So if 5 years from now, the company is there, but you get this incredible acting opportunity and it's at peak, what do you choose?
I think at that point, my business would have, a larger team that I would trust. So I would do the opportunity.
So
Yeah.
acting, your passion would switch, you think, to acting?
I don't know if it's necessarily like a switch. I just think
Or at least the focus, I mean.
I just think I would have created a strong enough infrastructure where I could do the opportunity, and I tell my clients all the time, it's like the only reason that I feel an integrity as a coach is because I'm still pursuing my dreams. A lot of coaches I've met and have learned, they get into coaching because they stopped pursuing their dreams, for whatever the reason. And I'm a firm believer that we are supposed to realize our dreams. We are supposed to realize our dreams. They may not happen by the time I want them to happen, but I've met a lot of coaches who began coaching because they weren't realizing their dreams, and they just continued on because it was working. And though something could be working well, that doesn't necessarily mean you're creating a really fulfilling life. I want to get to the places where, we're doing movies like, I don't know, like Julianne Moore and Still Alice, like an incredible movie, or we're, creating music that people are like listening and are really resonating with. And I think about it like this on a really practical level is there are people with jobs who have side businesses and have kids and have all these things. I feel very fortunate that I have a business that I can control, and I can still control entertainment to a degree. You know what I mean? So for me, I don't feel that I need to pick and choose if I approach it correctly, is my point.
You can have it all. You can have it all.
Yeah. And I think that's one thing that I recently came into awareness of as I was making this story, because I couldn't find an example for somebody like me who's an entertainer and has a business. And I was like, well, maybe I just need to create the new example.
Create a new example. I like that.
New example, which there's people who have done things that I'm sure we can identify where people can actually showcase that they can do it all. For example, like Jennifer Lopez is commented on for being like a singer, an actor, a dancer, a mogul. But it had kind of been a while before Jennifer Lopez where we saw somebody kind of do all those things with almost as much equal focus, because before her, we had people like Debbie Reynolds and Fred Astaire.
Oh, that's an interesting example. That's actually a very interesting example.
But she has always kind of said that she just kind of just followed whatever she wanted to do. Sometimes she would pick and choose which projects to do, depending as to like what she was working on. Like before she did her first album, she was doing a few movies. So she didn't work on music until she finished those 3 movies. And then she is focused on music. So it's not like we can do everything at once, all at the same time. But my point is, just because it hasn't been done before doesn't mean it can't be done.
I get that.
Yeah.
I get that. It's a very interesting example too. And also being that she's of Hispanic descent, you take a strong cultural example or wanting to be a cultural example. Is that a part of what you're hoping to establish as well?
In a way, yes. And then a way, no. So I really have a lot of passion and commitment for Latinos to grow and develop. So in that regard, yes. And in the way that I kind of want to expand and not say that it's not that, I think our backgrounds and where we come from, whether it is race or financial or religious or whatever, I think above that, the impact that we can have should exceed all those things. Like it should exceed all those things. You know, I'm thinking of like what's coming to my mind now. It's examples of like Martin Luther King Jr. And he was a figurehead for people of color, predominantly Black and African Americans in this country, but he became a figurehead outside of just his background, outside of just the people that he represented. You know, his focus was on elevating his people, just like mine is. But I think if we really do this thing, whatever this thing is, your career, your life, whatever you want to call it, you know, right, then the impact should transcend everything. Even, you know, and we're gonna get into like the conversation of Jesus, like really briefly. Like there's people that don't believe in him, people that do, but we all know who he is. Like we all know, we've heard the stories, you know, we celebrate Easter, you know, Christmas, like things from coming from a figure from a very small point in history in one of the smallest geographical places. Like his ministry was only like 3 years. Like if you think about it, like it was not a super long ministry, but he transcended everything, you know? So I say
Impact.
that, yeah, like his impact transcended so many things outside of just who he was or came from, you know? So for me, I want my impact to be just bigger than just my background and what I look like. You know, I wanted to have an impact on my people, my Latinos, especially my Dominicans, and I want it to be bigger.
Now, if you had to pick one of those examples of the people that you mentioned prior, who would you say is your biggest inspiration that you look at? Was it Tony Robbins or Les Brown is another interesting person as well, but who would it be for you that you really see them as a pathway in life coaching and the business, a great mentor for you?
I haven't mentioned her, I think, but her name is Danny Johnson. I think I mentioned her early on, like briefly. Danny Johnson isn't nearly as well known as Tony Robbins or Les Brown or like Lisa Nichols. But Danny Johnson, she's retired now. And she got her start in the network marketing industry. And she has this really great book called First Steps to Wealth. Really great book. And her story is, I'm not going to repeat it word for word because she explains it in very like blunt, simple terms. But you know, at one point, like she was doing drugs, she was homeless, like she would sleep around. And she, you know, joined network marketing and then she didn't really do anything with it. And then when she realized she couldn't continue on, she just decided to like leverage what she had. And she was able to create, I forget how much money, but she literally had a payphone booth. I think is her story. Like she went to a payphone booth at the time. And she was just using quarters to like make phone calls or whatever. And she would just sell packages over the phone until she could afford getting an apartment. And she says the biggest thing that really changed her life was actually connecting to God, but also getting a mentorship. So the way that she was mentored, her coach gave her like 4 rules. And it was basically like, don't make any excuses. Don't try to tell me how to do my job. Invest in your education. I forget the 4th one, but it was very like clear and direct and blunt. And I'm very much that person. Like I love when people just give me it really straight. You know, her coach said, if you give me one excuse or even one opinion, then we're not working together. Like even just one, it's case closed, you know, we're done. And excuses could be from things ranging like, I don't have the money, which we know we can usually find money if we really need to. That's why a lot of people have debt, because they found money for things that they couldn't afford. And Danny Johnson just has a really clear, direct way of coaching people. And I went to her events. She's incredible. And I also like that she's really driven by her connection to God, not necessarily like the church or spiritual or religion per se. Like she's really studied in her walk with God, and that really influenced how she would approach people and how she would approach her goals. Because also I think she was the first person in the space of personal development who said it very clearly, like, no, we're actually called to be successful, even if you are religious. You know, like I grew up Catholic and I'm Christian now, and I still go to church. But one thing that I hear in the church often is like, you know, suffering is the path to success or salvation and all those things, or like, you know, if it's meant to be, then you'll be wealthy. But I'm like, no, like I don't even think that would be valid. I don't even think God, I don't know of a God that would want you to be broke, you know, unless you're not doing the work and getting rich will ruin you. But it doesn't mean that you're not meant for it. It just means that you have to grow into the person that can manage the wealth, you know. And Danny Johnson, for me, like really connected all those points.
She's someone I haven't heard too much about of late, I gotta say, but I'm definitely willing to check her out. I find it very fascinating. Entrepreneurs and some of their examples always fascinates me, because I think when the people we garner inspiration from like that help definitely create our paths and what we would aspire to. Now, in closing, what would you say would be the best piece of advice you would share with someone in the pathway that it took for you, and how those people who motivated you inspired you? What would that advice be?
I think the biggest thing that's coming to mind is we hear the terms, like the term work on yourself, like work on yourself. But I want to make that more specific. And I really want to say, like, really work on your mindset and level of self-awareness, not in terms of how you're communicating or in what you're doing, but in where it comes from. Meaning that for a lot of times, like I have found myself like, you know, wanting certain things and wanting to experience certain things. And sometimes I would receive what I wanted, but I couldn't handle it. I couldn't really handle it well. And I would find myself like self-sabotaging, you know, and we see it with money a lot, where people, you know, make more money and they're still in debt. You know, we see it in relationships where people are looking for their person, looking for their partner, and then they find somebody great, and then for whatever the reason, it doesn't work out. And the thing for me that I always am working on is like, well, where is this reaction or this thought or this behavior is like, where is it coming from? So for example, when I said earlier, like I want to create the new example, that came from because up until recently, I didn't realize that because I didn't have an example, it was terrifying for me. Like, and I couldn't figure out, okay, how do I build entertainment and coaching to the levels that I want to build it into? Because I couldn't find an example. I hadn't found an example. But then when I shifted into seeing how my behaviors would be a little bit driven by scarcity, or my marketing wasn't as clean, or I wouldn't do as many phone calls or send out as many emails, or I would feel a little bit self-conscious, it was because I had the fear that because it didn't exist before, it wasn't going to exist, you know? So what I would encourage people to really do is like, really try your best to discover where whatever your behavior is, like, where is it coming from? Like, what is the story that we're creating? Because that story is either going to make you feel afraid or it's going to make you feel empowered. You know, I'm more excited about the work that I'm doing now because my new story is like, well, I'm just creating the new example, you know?
I really like that. The new example, creating the new example.
Thank you. So I would say like really getting into the mentality of not so much like, oh, am I avoided? Am I anxiously attached to my relationship? Like, no, but like, where is that coming from? Like, what is the actual belief around it? Because it's very hard to change any behavior until you actually know what is the belief that will generate that behavior. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. Well, I got to tell you, Pep, it has been a pleasure having you with us today. I thank you for your insight and the conversations. If anything, where would it be most valuable for people to reach out to you, for them to get connected to you, to learn more about your organization?
2 places. LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. So I'm there as Pepz Javier. So PEPZ Javier. And then my website, peptalkwithpeps.com. They can contact me there. I do a lot of like free giveaways and classes there. So either LinkedIn or my website.
Fantastic. Pepz, thank you so much. I close always with saying that Lovolution is the revolution that we all want. And today Pepz is a part of that Lovolution we're looking forward to. Pepz, we thank you on behalf of Makers Bar for being with us today, and the energy that you put into it, and the graciousness. We look forward to sharing and being in contact with you further.
Thank you. Thank you, Seth.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You have a good evening.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.